Going on, guys? Welcome in to another edition of Nebraska Huskers Live. I'm here with Brian, who Brian continues to have vertical video syndrome. I just realized that. But season's 9 days away, man. How you feeling?
Dude, I'm so freaking pumped. I was just I was at work earlier and I was talking with one of the guys today, and he's not a Nebraska fan, he's just a fan of college football. He's like, what are you thinking? And I go, I just can't wait. I'm just elated with joy. It's gonna be a good year, gonna be a fun year.
Let's just go ahead and dive into the recruiting news here, Brian. Go ahead and take that away for us because it's looking pretty exciting in the 2027 class.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Well, Pittman, is it Troy or Tory? I think it's Tory Pittman. My dyslexic kind of switches the O and the R. So huge commitment. I believe Greg Smith, shout out to Greg Smith on Rivals. He was the one that kind of led the charge a couple months ago with that crystal ball pick. This is probably the highest rated recruit in the state of Nebraska of all time. I think Baker Steinkuhler maybe was higher, but he was also a 5-star. You could argue there's one other player that was a 5-star back in the day.
Marlon Lucky?
Well, I mean, from the state locally. But a big physical safety. He's 6'1", 6'2"-ish, 190 plus pounds.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Nebraska, their pitch to him is not just safety. They are looking at him as potentially a corner because he has really good ball skills. They're also looking at him on the offensive side of the ball at receiver because, like I said, really good ball skills. And I think, when you have this big of a prospect locally from a smaller state, usually it doesn't carry as much weight, right? If you think back when Baker Steinkuhler committed, it didn't really, change the landscape in the terms of college recruiting because it was a very much expected commitment. I mean, he had like 4 offers because everybody knew he was going to Nebraska. Now you fast forward to, this day and age, and Nebraska kids are leaving like crazy. And getting him to stay home over offers from LSU and Notre Dame and Bama and every school you can think of in the country, it was very much a shock in the sense where we kind of had no idea this commitment was coming. Nebraska right now, the 2027 class has 2 5-stars committed. And I don't think anyone really thought that was possible. And we're kind of anticipating Trey Taylor and Troy to be consensus 5-stars. They just haven't completely done their rankings, but they're both kind of in that 5-star range. So this is monster. You got 2 nationally recognized guys across the country that are committed to Nebraska.
Yep. It's and kind of what we alluded to before, where it's like we started to see kind of the momentum building of getting a lot of these guys, your David Sanders and guys like that, onto campus, guys that we haven't been really getting out for visits, your big 5-stars and stuff like that. And then, eventually down the road that would ultimately lead to commitments. And we thought when the winning came that would be the case. And maybe it's the flirting with the prospect of this being the year of winning. And I think even more so that puts the pressure on the team this year to make sure that they win, because this is all kind of that snowball effect. These guys are excited about what's coming and they got to continue that momentum throughout the season. But just kind of alluding a little bit more to what you talked about. And it kind of goes in hand of what we're going to talk about here in a little bit later in terms of, aggressive defensive backs. But, that's kind of his style. He's one of those guys. He's going to be, like you said, he's very versatile. Ball skills are one of the things that make Derek Stingley one of my favorite defensive backs in the NFL to watch, because he's worked on his ball skills since he was 6 years old, and you can see it in elements of his game to where that adds a whole nother aspect of his game to where he baits throws and stuff like that. It when you have a guy who can juggle the defensive back work with the ball skills of wide receiver, it opens up so much more opportunity for what you can do with that player, because you can take a lot more risk with that guy, put him on an island a lot more, because if he's 5 yards off a ball, he's going to play it a lot better than a guy who's never played wide receiver. Ball skills aren't just getting up in the air, getting to the ball, making a catch. Ball skills are timing, they're breaking, understanding the quarterback's movement, when he's going to plant, when he's going to fire, like those type of deals. All of those things are things that go into the mind of a wide receiver that then help them in the defensive backfield. But yeah, like he is just an athlete through and through. But I just think the aggressive, style, good tackling player. I just think he fits the mold of what John Butler, the type of defensive back John Butler wants. It's just a very disciplined and technically sound, like football player, and that's kind of what he. You have to be very disciplined. You have to understand the basics to be able to thrive in John Butler's defense as
I
well.
think
So
too, just to kind of backtrack too about like just the grand scheme of 2027 recruiting. When you get Pittman, you've got that big vocal national leader on the defensive side of the ball to go along with your offensive recruiter and Trey Taylor. And these are guys like they're in communications with the Ahmad Hudsons. They're in communications with all these other big prospects. And now you're going to have two legitimate dudes and every other prospect's ears about this place is different. And like you said earlier about the snowball effect is, if we get into October and Nebraska's a top 15 team, top 20 team, you're going to start seeing those recruits for 2027. I mean, we're going to have a really busy fall potentially filming 2027 commitment videos because I think that's how aggressively they're pushing for this 2027 class to really start rolling.
agree. Yeah.
As we get closer to the season, I do this every year where I start sipping that Kool-Aid and the next thing you know, I'm chugging the Kool-Aid. But like you said, it just feels different. And it's because there's not a lot of outside noise from the program. There's not a lot of noise coming out of the program outside of what the coaches are saying. And I think this is the first time in a long time where I actually believe what they're saying in the sense where they're not playing the political game where, yeah, we're making progress. It's getting better each day. Like you're talking about two fall scrimmages where Coach Rule's come out and said, yeah, the offense is good. And the little information you do get outside of the coach speak is you hear that same sentiment where this offense might carry this team a little bit farther than we think.
Yeah, I agree, and I think in a lot of facets, like there were things that we had questions on, and positions that we had questions on that maybe we feel like we've somewhat gotten answers to an extent. The running back position, we are feeling better about that. The interior D line, I kind of feel the same about that. But again, not one of those things that was a concern, more so the experience. But we're going to talk about the defense a little bit more. But yeah, finally a team that feels like I feel like on any given game week going into the season, I feel like either one of these sides could be the hero, and that's something that we haven't felt in a long time. It's been one or the other. And I think this season in general, it feels like this. I think it's also more so just the feeling of belief that the players and the coaches have in themselves that just resonates without them saying, like, there's just something about the overall vibe that I think gives me that kind of that quiet false extra confidence that it's just like a nuance that we haven't picked up on before, I feel like. And I feel like probably a lot of people are like, oh, of course, we hear this every year. But I can tell you last season, I was not this fired up going into the season. I was not getting extra confident going into the season. I was more so, the gun shy X last year that I'm kind of getting on people for being this year, because I feel like we can use that whole, oh, we'll believe it when we see it every single prediction for everything we do, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just this belief that I feel like is innate in the players and the coaches, and I feel like they believe. I feel like it's almost like you feel they believe or they trust what they're saying, and that resonates. That authenticity resonates with us.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say. Was it just feels very spread out across the board in terms of the sentiment, the verbiage, the confidence, and it's whether it's Deshaun McCullough, who was speaking to the media recently, or John Butler or Terry Braden. It's just it's a very uniform front in the sense that message is consistent across the board, and that's what makes me a little bit more confident as we are, what you said, 9 days out. And yeah, and so you don't have the typical like I was talking about earlier, that coach speak where it's just you're kind of just saying stuff to say stuff with no purpose. It feels like everything is very done with the right intent, I guess is the way to put it. And they're speaking confidently because they are confidently, but they're not, overdoing it in a sense.
Yeah, there's authentic belief. Thank you so much. Season's almost here. We have almost survived the off season. So Husker football will be with us very, very soon. And then you can listen to us actually talk about games. So I'm sure you all appreciate that very much. But that being said, we will see y'all in the next video.